Chapter 1. The following content is not set in the real world. Please substitute for a similar parallel world template. Other than the similarities in culture, everything else is different. At night, the cold moonlight shone on the ground. In the hidden corners, many blurry figures could be vaguely seen. Everyone must be careful. The target is a high IQ criminal. Don't give him any chance to escape. Roger. After everyone arrived at the designated location, small capsules were thrown in through the door and the cracks in the window. With a slight bang, the capsule exploded and choking smoke instantly filled the entire room. After estimating that the hypnotic gas had taken effect, the special forces wearing gas masks quickly kicked open the door and rushed in. Report, no target found in the bedroom. Report, no target found in the kitchen. Report, no target found in the living room. Report, no secret passage found in the room. Hearing the bad news one after another, Chang Yuan, who was originally happy, immediately became gloomy. Damn it, why is it like this? Where are the intelligence personnel? What are they doing? Why didn't anyone report the disappearance of the target? Don't blame them. Ah, Director Yu? The hypnotic gas in the room had been dispelled. Ho Jinyu walked to the bookshelf and took out a book called Analysis of Dreams. If I'm not wrong, they were hypnotized. On one side of the bookshelf, there were various manga figurines. On the other side, there were various books related to psychology such as Self and ID, and Fantasy is Reality. Huyu's eyes widened. Wait a minute. Didn't the initial report say that the target was just a high IQ otaku? Do you think an otaku can fool the police? Ho Jinyu sighed and shook his head. Even if he's an otaku, he's an extremely dangerous otaku. Chang Yuan nodded silently. That's right. Why would a proper otaku read this? His bookshelf was not even big enough for a figurine. Looking at the small photo frame on the table, many police officers nodded in grief and indignation. What happened to the fat otaku? With such a handsome and sunny face, how could he live up to the title of otaku? Traitor Hatue, who you still couldn't understand. But he had a direct conflict with the victim, and he was one of the first people to be summoned by the police. Didn't the person who made the record notice anything strange? Ho Jinyu closed the book and sighed again. On one hand, he hid it too well. His teachers, classmates, friends, and family all came to the same conclusion. On the other hand, it was also because there were too many people who had a grudge against the victim's family. Compared to the others who were summoned at that time, he was indeed the least suspicious. Seeing everyone's solemn expressions, Chang Yuan encouraged everyone. Such a difficult opponent, but he still gave himself away under our close investigation. At least he has nowhere to run now. The group of police officers revealed relaxed smiles. No matter how difficult the enemy was to deal with, as long as their identities were exposed, only death awaited them. Did they really think that they could rely on their own abilities to do whatever they wanted in modern society? However, Ho Jinyu's expression was incomparably solemn. You're wrong. Our biggest trouble may have just begun. The police officer beside him laughed and said, Chief, you're still playing with us at a time like this. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from Ho Jinyu's earpiece. Bureau Chief, bad news. Zhang-san has been taken away. In order to avoid harming friendly forces, I had to use an out-of-character name. Please forgive me. How is that possible? Ho Jinyu's expression changed drastically at first, but he quickly asked, Then how are your current situation? The person on the other end of the phone sounded a little ashamed. We were knocked out by the hypnotic gas. When we woke up, Zhang-san was already gone. However, there are no casualties on our side for the time being. Hearing that there were no casualties, Ho Jinyu regained his composure. He can't have gone far with his men, and he set up in advance to not be discovered. It's most likely an abandoned school or an abandoned factory nearby. However, you have to be careful. After discovering the target, you must not provoke him. Got it. Although the people around them couldn't hear the content of the call, they could roughly guess from Ho Jinyu's words. Seeing that the call was over, they quickly asked, Chief, what's going on? Ho Jinyu shook his head. You should know how the other party gave himself away, right? Chang Yuan rubbed his chin and said, He went to the hospital to see a doctor today. Originally, We were just doing a routine investigation of his medical records after the incident, but we found out that he was already in the advanced stage of cancer. It's possible for people to do anything under the pressure of death, so we put the focus of the investigation back on him and connected some of the small details that had been overlooked in the past. As he spoke, he shook his head and sighed. Lin Yushan's cancer. A cancer that's so rare that it's named after him. No wonder he was so desperate. Ho Jinyu looked at him. Do you think he only found out about his situation today? Chang Yuan was stunned and suddenly reacted. Hypnosis. He hypnotized those doctors and made them record an ordinary disease in the system. He's not hiding it now because he only has one last person to kill. That's right. Zhang San's entire family has been killed. He's the only one left now. Huyu was furious. He could have used a simpler method to kill Zhang San, but he chose to expose himself. Is he declaring war on us? Everyone else felt humiliated, but Ho Jinyu said, I consulted many psychologists today. According to their analysis, the other party should be the kind of person who looks gentle and humble, but is extremely proud in his heart. The reason why he took the initiative to expose himself is probably not to declare war on us, but Ho Jinyu took a deep breath. He wants Zhang San to die in the most desperate situation. Chang Yuan was instinctively shocked and asked subconsciously, You mean, he deliberately let Zhang San see the hope of being saved, and then when Zhang San reaches the peak, he will fall from heaven to hell all of a sudden. But he'll definitely be arrested if he does that. Huyu's voice was suddenly stuck in her throat, because she remembered that Lin Yushan had cancer. Now you should know why I said that the biggest trouble has just begun, right? Ho Jinyu sighed. Madman, this guy is definitely a madman. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Such an enemy was really too terrifying. In an abandoned factory. Let me go, let me go. I can give you money, a lot of money. A fashionably dressed young man was tied to an iron chair, struggling and shouting loudly. However, the young man on the other side turned a deaf ear to him. He whistled briskly and stabbed a syringe into the fashionable young man's arm under his fearful gaze. What is this? Zhang San asked nervously. Oh, this is a medicine that can make you more sensitive. Lin Yushan replied with a smile. More sensitive? This is good stuff. It can multiply the pleasure you get. Of course, the same goes for the pain. Lin Yushan smiled and used a small knife to cut a wound on Zhang San's arm. The wound was not deep, but Zhang San screamed like a pig being slaughtered. His eyes bulged, and he looked like a dehydrated salted fish. Ah, that's it. I haven't sprinkled salt yet. Lin Yushan smiled and took out a bag of salt and chili powder. Devil, you perverted devil. Zhang San was so scared that snot bubbles floated out of his nose. His legs kept rubbing against the ground, trying to get away from this devil. Unfortunately, the chair that was fixed by steel was not something his small body could move. Aya, didn't you feel good when you were racing? I can guarantee that this is 10,000 times more exciting than racing. Lin Yushan's mouth had a devilish smile. What do you want? Zhang San's face was covered in snot and tears. He broke down and shouted, I've already paid you the money. What else do you want? Oh, Lin Yushan was surprised. That's strange. Weren't you the one who got those thugs to take the money back? Zhang San's expression froze. He actually did not care about the compensation money. He only did this because he was unhappy about the experience of being summoned to the police station. If he knew that he would provoke such a pervert, he would never have let his underlings teach him a lesson. No, he would never have gone racing. Although he was regretting it, Zhang San still held on and said fiercely, Just you wait, my people will blow you up. Ah, seeing Zhang San's confused face, Lin Yushan kindly explained again. They were all blown up, and they died miserably. After that, Lin Yushan took out his phone and showed him the photos. Looking at the charred pieces of flesh in the photos, Zhang San felt disgusted and vomited. Madman! You're a madman! Zhang San screamed in fear, but more than that he regretted it. If he could do it all over again, he would never provoke such a madman. At this moment, the urgent alarm sounded. Oh, they're quite fast. Lin Yushan looked outside the factory. Police, the police are here. Zhang San was overjoyed. He had never looked forward to the arrival of the police as much as he did today. Outside. Chief, we've accidentally triggered the alarm as you said. But can this really make the other party careless? A police officer asked doubtfully. We've already lost a round before. And now we're rushing here. It's reasonable to act a little impatient. Ho Jinyu pondered slightly. Then, Ho Jinyu asked through the walkie-talkie. How is it? Is there a suitable sniper position? Soon a voice came from the headset. It's very difficult. The target is in the blind spot of the factory. The only place we can aim at is in a straight line with the hostages. Sure enough, they're still not careless. Ho Jinyu said to himself. Then we'll consider it from the third level. Knowing that the police are deliberately luring them, the other party will be vigilant of the flaws we deliberately left behind. At this time, we'll break through from other directions. Chang Yuan asked subconsciously, what if the other party is standing on the fourth level? Seeing the chief's eyes widen, Chang Yuan quickly asked, Chief, what do you mean by other directions? Ho Jinyu's mouth twitched a few times and said, when they think we're deliberately provoking them to reveal flaws, we'll change our target to Zhang San. Oh, Chang Yuan said in a drawn-out voice. In the open, we're going in the dark. I understand. Taking a deep breath, Ho Jinyu held the loudspeaker and said, Lin Yushan, stop. You have no way to escape. A similarly amplified voice came from the factory. Chief Ho, these words are not in line with your standards. You should know that it's impossible for me to stop. I know that you hate scum like Zhang San. But what's the difference between you and scum like him now? Zhang San, who was looking at the outside world, was a little dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? I'm a hostage. I'll panic if you say that. This kind of provocation is really not painful at all. For the law, killing is killing, even if it's scum. After doing such a thing, of course, I won't pretend to be a good person. I understood this principle the moment I took my first step. Everyone in the police force frowned. The other party had a very clear understanding of what he was doing. He did not think that what he was doing was righteous, nor did he have the idea of whitewashing evil like ordinary criminals. The psychological defense of this kind of person was very difficult to break through. No, I believe that your heart still yearns for the light. Otherwise, why did you drive away the local people before taking action for so many bombing cases? You think too much. I did this just to make the game more pure and... At this time, Ho Jinyu shouted through the loudspeaker. Zhang San, lower your head. Zhang San, who was called by his name, was shocked and instinctively lowered his head. Then, Lin Yushan's forehead was exposed to the police force's line of sight. Now, the sniper pulled the trigger without any hesitation. Bang! With a bright trail of flame, the sniper bullet instantly shot between Lin Yushan's eyebrows. With a plop, the blood blossomed, and Lin Yushan's body fell to the ground weakly. Seeing this, the police force, who were still waiting outside, could not believe it. The perverted murderer, who had fooled them, died just like that? Even Ho Jinyu's expression changed, and he felt that it was extremely unreal. Zhang San was stunned at first, but was quickly overwhelmed by the tide of joy. Ha 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 ha. Idiot, trash. Didn't you want to kill me? Didn't you die in the end? Just you wait. When I get back, I'll kill everyone related to you. Hearing Zhang San's nonsense, Ho Jinyu's face was gloomy. Although Lin Yushan is a bastard, this guy is also a scumbag. What he did is enough to be shot 10 times. When we get back, organize the information and contact the other victims to initiate a lawsuit. Hu nodded. Yes. Everyone showed a relieved smile. From the police's point of view, they had to rescue the hostages. But from the perspective of ordinary people, they felt disgusted just by looking at that kind of scumbag. Then let's go in and rescue him now. Chang Yuan smiled maliciously. At this time, the voice belonging to Lin Yushan was heard again. Hi everyone. Hearing this nightmarish voice, Zhang San's wild laughter froze on his face. Then he screamed in horror. Ghost, there's a ghost. You devil. You won't let me go even after becoming a ghost? As if to save time, the voice sounded again while Zhang San was still screaming. When this voice is heard, it means that I'm really dead. Student Zhang San, you should be very happy now, right? Doesn't it feel good to return to the human world from hell? Hearing the voice say that Lin Yushan was indeed dead, Zhang San could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. But before he could completely relax, he heard the gentle voice suddenly turn cold. Then, how does it feel to fall from the human world to hell again? Actually, I've installed a bomb in my body. Hearing this, Ho Jinyu's face changed. Everyone retreat outside. Don't hesitate, I'll bear the consequences. The countdown starts when my heart stops beating. The time is 3 minutes. At this time, many police officers had already entered the factory and were ready to rescue the hostages. 3 minutes was enough for them, but when they heard the director's firm order, they could only retreat. After all, they did not want to risk their lives to save a scumbag. When he heard that there was a bomb, Zhang San's body trembled. Now that he saw these police officers abandoning him and running away, he was so scared that he peed his pants. I'm still here, take me with you and run away. Aren't you all police officers? How can you leave the hostages and run away? You trash. Did you even hear what I said? While he was infuriated, Lin Yushan's voice continued. I accidentally said too much nonsense just now. I don't know what time it is now. Why don't we start counting from 5? For 3. Wait, when did we talk for 3 minutes? Zhang San screamed like a pig being slaughtered again, his body violently struggling. 2-1 goodbye. Don't. Accompanied by a scream of despair and fear, the airwaves were noisy, the fire soared, and the surrounding ground shook violently. The fire swallowed all the evil. Phew, we almost lost our lives. Looking at the monstrous fire, the police officers were scared, but they could not help but look at the director with gratitude. In order to let the other party die in despair and pain, he actually used his own death as a part of the plan. Chang Yuan looked at the fire with a complicated gaze. This is definitely the most terrifying enemy I have ever encountered. Everyone nodded in agreement. This kind of person was really too terrifying. You looked at Ho Jinyu with some worry. Director, although the later events have proven that you are right, we did not throw caution to the wind to save people. If the unscrupulous media or public knew about this, police officers are also human. If it is to save people, then there should not be too much consideration. Ho Jinyu said firmly. But if it is to save a scumbag, then I will never agree to use their lives to exchange for that scumbag's life. As for those trash who only know how to talk, if they have the guts, come and find me face to face. Director. Everyone looked at him touched. Sai, informed the fire department. Looking at the fire soaring into the sky, Ho Jinyu sighed. What a pity. Chapter 2. With leaf year 41 early spring, the cold morning wind was blowing, fresh and soft, making the people who got up early to shiver. But at the same time, they couldn't help but take a deep breath of the fragrance of spring. There weren't many pedestrians on the road, but everyone's face was full of hope. At the beginning of the new year, everyone was looking forward to welcoming the arrival of a new life. It has been nearly a year since the end of the Second Shinobi World War. Although the scars left by the war haven't been completely wiped out, they are deeply buried. Life is always about looking forward. About the timeline, don't rush to talk about it. There will be a separate chapter to explain it later. Phew, I almost overslept. Eminence was running in small steps. Thinking about what happened this morning, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Unlike other Chunin who are retired in a ninja school, becoming a teacher has always been his dream. And this directly caused him to be too excited last night and couldn't sleep. When the alarm rang in the morning, he should have jumped out of bed like a carp. However, because he slept too deeply, he flopped on the bed like a salted fish and fell asleep again. But fortunately, it's not too late. Looking at the time of 7:20 on his watch, Eminence was secretly relieved. Today is only the enrollment day. There shouldn't be any new students coming this early. Walking to the gate of the school, there was no one near the enrollment area. Seeing this, Eminence's tense heart finally relaxed. I knew it, how could there be? Just as Eminence was about to tidy up his clothes and enter the school in his most energetic state, a small figure suddenly appeared in the corner of his eyes, and the smile on his face suddenly froze. It was a little boy holding a broom. Although he wasn't as tall as the broom, His movements weren't stiff at all. Obviously, he wasn't the kind of person who cleaned for fun to leave a good impression on others. At this time, Eminence suddenly reacted. After a holiday, the school was so clean that not even a leaf could be seen. Ahem, that classmate. Hearing Eminence's voice, the little boy turned his head and immediately ran over excitedly. Sensei, you didn't come here yesterday, did you? Eminence looked at the clean and tidy school and smiled. No, I've only been here for 2 hours. Little boy shook her head vigorously. Oh, that's good. Good my ass. This is too embarrassing. Thinking that he couldn't even compare to a child, the Eighth Awakener screamed madly in his heart. But on the surface he nodded calmly. You did well. This seems to be a teacher with a lot of inner drama. The boy thought to himself as he observed the movements of the 8 awakenings. At the same time, the 8 divine saints also recovered from their awkward situation and noticed something else. To be able to clean up the entire campus in 2 hours, not only did it show that the other party was extremely efficient, but it also showed that the other party had a very strong will. Awakened Yagami subconsciously put himself in her shoes. If it were him at her age, he wouldn't even be able to stand the boring task of cleaning for 10 minutes. To be able to withstand temptation and not be tempted by external things is a real ninja. The Eighth Awakener nodded with satisfaction. Although he didn't know what kind of talent this little boy had, with this kind of self-control, he believed that he would definitely become an excellent ninja. At the very least, he has to be better than me. Eminence walked over to the registration office with a smile. Come over here. The sooner you finish the registration procedures, the sooner you can take the admission documents and go home to rest. Name: Garashi Shimizu Garashi. Age: 5 years old. Parents: Garashi was silent for a moment and said with a sad face. Sacrificed in the war. The Eighth Awakener's right hand that was taking notes stiffened. I'm sorry, I didn't know you. He also regretted that he was still too young and didn't make enough preparations. This kind of sensitive question could have been directly skipped. Garashi bit his lower lip and shook his head slightly. It's okay, sensei, it's been 2 years, I won't cry again. He lost his parents at the age of 3. The Eighth Awakener was a little depressed. Although the village will give subsidies to the families of ninjas who died in the war, it's still too difficult for a 3-year-old child to live independently. No wonder he's so self-reliant. The Eighth Awakener sighed secretly and looked at Shimizu Garashi with a softer gaze. After registering the information, the Eighth Awakener handed the admission documents to Garashi. Well, you should go home early. It's too lonely there. Garashi looked sad. The Eighth Awakener thought that he stepped on a mine again. Fortunately, Garashi quickly recovered and clenched his small hands and looked at the Eighth Awakener with eager eyes. Sensei, let me stay here and help. The Eighth Awakener subconsciously wanted to refuse. Although he was just a new teacher, if he asked a student to help on the first day, he would be laughed at by the seniors. But seeing the sincere look in Garashi's eyes, the words of refusal were stuck in his throat and couldn't come out. It's because he hates loneliness that he's looking forward to the liveliness of the school. Aware that he grasped the other's thoughts, the Eighth Awakener couldn't refuse. Okay. Great. Garashi cheered excitedly. Seeing Garashi, who has always been more mature than his peers, finally showing a side of him that's in line with his age, the Eighth Awakener also smiled with relief. Although maturity is a good thing, but it comes with a price. Sensei, is there anything I can help with? After the excitement, Garashi looked at the Eighth Awakener and asked. The Eighth Awakener touched his chin in a dilemma. It's just a registration. What can he ask little Garashi to help with? He can't just leave the registration work to him. Got it. The Eighth Awakener's eyes lit up and said with a snap of his fingers. Well, I'll take you around the school first, and after the other students have finished registering, you can show them the classrooms, the playground, and the cafeteria. Although he is a new teacher, he also came out of this ninja school 10 years ago. Plus he came back a few days ago to take a look, so he can still figure out the basic location. Yeah. Garashi nodded again and again. The ninja school is actually not that big, especially compared to Garashi's memories from the other world. In 10 minutes, Garashi followed the 8th Awakener and walked around the entire ninja school. When they returned to the registration office, there were still only the two of them in the school. There's no other way, they arrived too early. Perhaps the 8th Awakener felt that it was a bit awkward for the two of them to stand there stupidly. So during the time they were waiting, the 8th Awakener explained a lot of interesting things and little knowledge to Garashi. Finally, when the time came to 8:20, a new student arrived. What appeared in their line of sight was a little girl with blood-red eyes. La 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 la, the red-eyed girl hummed a song and walked briskly. When she saw the 8th Awakener, her eyes lit up, and she quickly walked to the registration office and asked, "Are you Sensei?" "Well, my name is the 8th Awakener. You can also call me 8th Sensei." The 8th Awakener tried to squeeze out a kind and dignified smile. "Little girl, what's your name?" However, in the eyes of Garashi and the 8th Awakener, his smile was a bit funny. This sensei doesn't seem to be very smart. Although she complained in her heart, she still replied seriously, "Kurenai, Kurenai, 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 Kurenai." "She is Kurenai?" Garashi's face didn't change, but in his heart, he was secretly collecting information about the other party. Soon, the 8th Awakener finished registering Kurenai's information. "Garashi, take Kurenai classmate to familiarize herself with the school." "Yes." The two walked out side by side, and on the way, Kurenai tilted her head and looked at Garashi next to her and asked, "Garashi-sensei, did sensei specially ask you to help?" In fact, she had been curious about Garashi, who was standing next to sensei for a long time. But her good upbringing prevented her from asking abruptly. Garashi stopped and turned his head rather awkwardly and said, "Kurenai classmate, I'm actually the same as you, a new student who just entered school today." "Ah, I'm sorry." Kurenai didn't get angry because of this, but apologized sincerely. After all, Garashi never said that he was a senior, and she was wrong about it. "It's okay. I didn't take the initiative to introduce myself." Garashi smiled brightly. "Then let's get to know each other again. I'm Shimizu Garashi. Please take care of me in the future." Kurenai nodded excitedly. "My name is Kurenai. Let's work hard together in the future." Then, she asked with some doubt, "You're also a new student. Why did Sensei Yagami ask you to familiarize me with the school?" If it wasn't for Sensei Yagami's arrangement, she wouldn't have called him by the wrong name. Garashi smiled a little embarrassedly. "I took the initiative to apply to Sensei Yagami. We'll be classmates in the future, and I want to do something for everyone that I can." Kurenai didn't think much about it, and just clapped her hands and praised, "You're such a nice person." Then, she was a little embarrassed. "If it were me, I wouldn't have the patience to help everyone compared to you. I'm really too lousy." Garashi smiled and said, "Kurenai classmate, you don't have to compare yourself to me. Everyone has a unique self. Doubting and denying yourself will only make you unhappy. So you must be happy to be yourself. Only then can we find the forest that belongs to us." "Yes, yes." Kurenai's eyes lit up. Garashi's words were really nice. In addition to Kurenai, Garashi also guided many famous people, such as Ibixi, who always had a straight face, Shizen, who was holding a small ninja pig, Mizuki, who looked gloomy, and Asma, the delinquent who almost missed the registration. Even the other students, who were not even considered passers-by in the original track, were treated with great enthusiasm by Shushi. This also made it so that on the first day, all the students remembered a name, Shimizu Garashi. Chapter 3. Regarding the timeline, this book basically uses the article Naruto Ninja Timeline, written by Jihu's author Dark Red Danyang. I've already received his authorization. If you want to see a detailed analysis, you can go to Jihu to take a look. In fact, Naruto itself doesn't have a wood-leaf ninja history. This division is just to let everyone have a more intuitive understanding. I also know that most of the Chidian Dojinshi about the timeline is that Naruto's appearance is in the 60th year of Woodleaf. But the problem is, I've looked up a lot of information, but I couldn't find the exact source of this statement. Danyang also gave a picture of the Book of Formations. With the end of the Fourth World War as the starting point, It introduced that Hashirama established with Leaf Ninja 67 years ago. In other words, after the Fourth World War ended, it was in the 68th year of Wood Leaf Ninja. The Book of Formations does have a lot of bugs, but the manga doesn't explain it clearly, so it's still very useful for reference. Naruto's appearance was 12 years old, and the Fourth World War was 17 years old. From this analysis, the manga starts in the 63rd year of Wood Leaf Ninja. Of course, this actually doesn't have much of an impact. Readers who aren't used to this division can subtract 3 from my timeline. For example, if the protagonist's appearance is in the 41st year of Wood Leaf Ninja, you can think of it as the 38th year of Wood Leaf Ninja. The reason why I explained so much is because the experience of the previous 2 books tells me that if you don't explain things clearly, the reviews of the first few chapters will definitely be quite serious. ***. Since I've said this much, I might as well talk about some time bugs that might be mentioned next. I won't explain them later. First, regarding the division of classes. For example, the first batch of Wood Leaf's 12 rookies were 12 years old, and Niji and the others were 13 years old. From this, it can be seen that the age of the people in the same batch is basically the same. Looking back, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade are the same age. Looking back, Sandaime, Danzo, and several elders are also the same age. From this, it can be seen that the age of the people in the Wood Leaf Ninja School is basically the same. As for the saying that Wood Leaf Jounin are basically Kakashi's batch, it is roughly derived from the content of manga 599. Bordered Soil was late, and happened to meet Kakashi, and the others who had just received their admission notice, and were returning home. Kakashi Rin met Kei, and others were in that group. But the problem is that the oldest in the picture at that time was 8 years older than the youngest, Hate Gecko. How could they be in the same batch? What's even more embarrassing is that Kakashi graduated at the age of 5. So the Kakashi in the picture must be younger than 5 years old. And Hate Gecko is 3 years younger than Kakashi. So the Hate Gecko in the picture is less than 2 years old? Even if the people in Naruto develop early, it's too ridiculous to go to school at the age of 2. In the picture, the Chunin exam of manga 599 clearly arranged Enko, Hate Gecko, and others to take the same exam. In fact, it's easy to understand. Just like Niji Hyuga, those who take the Chunin exam at the same time may not necessarily be in the same batch. By the way, Kakashi is a Chunin at the age of 6, Bordered Soil and Rin graduated at the age of 9, but they actually appeared in the same Chunin exam. In short, there are a lot of age bugs in Naruto, so I'll arrange these characters according to their age. In the protagonist's batch, the famous ones are Kurenai, Asuma, Ibiki, Shizen and Mizuki. Second, when it comes to the division of classes, let's talk about personality. The modifiers I mentioned in the previous chapter are based on the characters when they were young. For example, Mizuki, he can't pretend to be a hypocrite when he was young. After all, this kind of thing also requires talent. Students may say that Mizuki wasn't necessarily a bad person when he was young, but in fact in the original work, Mizuki was jealous of Iruka when he was young because he was encouraged and helped by others. Although it may be because of his later experience, it should also be inseparable from his extreme personality. Second, Asuma was a steady and easygoing person in the original work, but he also had the experience of being a delinquent when he was young. This is actually an addition to the anime version, but later on in the manga, there are also scenes of Asuma smoking when he was young. Although it's hard to say that he was a delinquent when he was young, he should still be rebellious. Moreover, later on, he had the experience of becoming one of the 12 guardian ninjas. In the manga, he apologized to the Tombstone of Sandaime that he once left with Leaf and did things based on his own likes and dislikes. This should still be able to explain that he had a rebellious period when he was young. In short, please don't completely correspond the characters in the current stage of the book to the original work. A person's personality will change with the passage of time and experience. Third, regarding the age of if you don't kill. In chapter 14 of the manga, Kakashi said that if you don't killed all the examinees in the graduation exam 10 years ago and forced Kirin to reform. But the problem is that if you don't kill, setting states that he died at the age of 26 and graduated from the ninja school at the age of 9. If he died at the age of 26, then he graduated at the age of 16. Leaving 7 or 8 years behind to bully elementary school students. This kind of thing shouldn't be anything to brag about, right? Here, let's just say that Kakashi left out a few. After all, if you don't kill was Kakashi's first enemy, and he was the same age as Kakashi at the time, so he had a sense of destiny as an opponent. In fact, there are many bugs in Naruto, but I probably won't get involved too much in the early stages, so I won't talk too much here. Chapter 4. The next day early morning. Kurenai, be careful on the road. By the way, did you get your lunch? Remember to go home early after school. Okay, I know. After saying goodbye to her father, who was getting more and more annoying, Kurenai ran out of the house. I can finally start my ninja career. Well, although I'm just a trainee ninja. Thinking of the new friend she met yesterday, Kurenai's heart was full of expectations for the beautiful school life. It didn't take long for her to arrive at the school and find the corresponding classroom. Although it was early, when she walked into the classroom, there were still 6 or 7 people gathered together. And the one who was surrounded by them was her good friend Shimizu Garashi, Mizukiza-san. In front of strangers, Kurenai finally restrained her inner joy and greeted him in a relatively reserved manner. Kurenai-san. Garashi stood up from his seat and responded happily, and then introduced them to each other. This is Maki Amamiya, classmate, this is Morina Ibiki, classmate, and this is... hello. Nice to meet you for the first time. Nice to meet you too. Everyone greeted each other with some awkwardness. Only when Garashi was the host of the topic, everyone's tone became warm. It's because Garashi-san acted as the link for everyone. Kurenai understood in her heart, and looked at Garashi with some stars in her eyes. Under the deliberate guidance of Garashi, everyone quickly found a common topic, and gradually, the relationship between everyone gradually became harmonious. After that, the new students who entered the classroom either directly rushed to their good friend Garashi, or slowly joined this small group driven by the herd mentality. As a result, when the bell rang to signal the start of class, all the new students gathered around Shushi, except for a few who were eccentric or disdainful of the situation. Most people were ignorant about this, and simply felt that it was lively and fun, and the fear of the unfamiliar environment in their hearts disappeared without a trace at this moment. But there were a small number of clear-headed newcomers who realized the amazing cohesiveness of Garashi-san. When the 8th Awakening walked into the classroom with excitement, he was surprised to find that the chaotic scene described by his seniors did not appear. Almost all the freshmen were sitting obediently in their seats. When he walked up to the podium, they shouted loudly, "Everyone, please don't be afraid. Hello, sensei." Although the voices were messy, mixed with a lot of laughter, and it sounded like they were treating this as a game, the 8 saints were still moved to tears. What a good child. 8 saints sighed in his heart, but at the same time, he couldn't help but secretly criticize the seniors. How could such a cute student be called a demon? Doesn't your conscience? Students. Saint's gaze swept across the crowd. He said in a gentle tone, "I am your basic teacher, Saint. You can also call me Sensei." Sensei, I also came from the Ninja Academy, and I understand everyone's desires and concerns very well, so I will try my best to play a role in the future to help everyone. And at the same time, please don't be afraid of me. Just treat me as your sensei. Next, let's introduce ourselves. Saint didn't do anything special, but looked at the freshman sitting in the first row and said, "Kimura-san, let's start with you." Yes, the freshman sitting in the first row was obviously a little nervous, because he went to the wrong classroom, and only the front row was left. My name is Shinichi Kimura. Nice to meet everyone." Seeing that he sat down after saying that, Saint smiled awkwardly. It's really, well, a concise and clear introduction, but we still have a lot of time, so the students behind can introduce more about themselves, such as hobbies, dreams, and so on. The freshman sitting in the second row was a lot more generous, Without waiting for the sensei to call his name, he jumped up and said, "I am Ryosuke Takatani, my hobby is fighting, and I want to dominate the ninja academy and become Naruto's man." Saint laughed twice. "That's a very powerful speech." Then the next one. "I am Hayato Serizawa, I have no hobbies, my dream is to become Naruto's man." "Hey, I said I want to become Naruto's man first. Are you still a 4-year-old child? Becoming Naruto's man isn't something that can be decided just because someone said it first. Don't fight. The one who wants to become Naruto's man is me, Takuma Shinto. Idiot, do you want to fight? Come on, don't be afraid." Seeing that many freshmen were about to fight in the classroom, Saint was sweating profusely. How did the situation suddenly change in the direction that the sensei said? "Wait, everyone calm down." Unfortunately, not only did no one listen to his advice, there were even a lot of freshmen fanning the flames. "Hey, fight, fight." At this time, Garashi, who had been secretly observing, suddenly stood up and said, "Takatani-san, Serizawa-san, Kamizuki-san, can you listen to me for a few words?" "Ah, so it's Garashi, then say it." Takatani Ryosuke scratched his head. "Humph, I'm giving Garashi face." Serizawa crossed her arms and said proudly, Garashi-san also wants to be Naruto's man?" Kamizuki Takuma said with a complicated expression. Not only the three of them, but the students who were fanning the flames also suddenly stopped. This change made Saint inexplicably have an illusion of who was the real teacher. Garashi asked softly, "Can you tell me, why do you want to be Naruto's man?" "Of course it's because Naruto is the strongest ninja in the village. I want everyone in the village to recognize me." "I don't think so much. I just think that if I become Naruto's man, my parents won't dare to beat me." Everyone had a subtle expression on their face. The first two reasons were fine, but the third reason was serious. "My idea may be different from yours, in my opinion." Garashi didn't show anything strange, but with a sincere gaze he swept the three of them. "It's not that only Naruto can be recognized by everyone, but only those who are recognized by the people can become Naruto. For the freshmen who haven't established a concept of life, this sentence can't be considered enlightening, but it still gives them a very powerful and reasonable feeling." On the contrary, Saint looked a little dazed after listening to Garashi's words. Only those who are recognized by the people. Looking at everyone's inexplicably excited expression, Garashi struck while the iron was hot. No matter how strong a person is, he is only a person, and carrying everything alone will inevitably lead to failure. I think you have also heard the story of Shodame-sama and Uchiha Madara. The reason why Shodame-sama can become Naruto's man, isn't it because he has the support of the village and his companions? If you can't even get the recognition of your classmates, how can you get the recognition of the other people in the village? In a sense, this is the same as the elementary school essays in Garashi's previous life. If you don't cite some famous examples, even if you write a beautiful story, it won't be very convincing. After all, children don't like to listen to too many reasons. When they heard the first paragraph, the three of them were still confused, but after using Shodame-sama as an example, their thoughts quickly changed. "I'm sorry, I'll let you be Naruto's man." "Forget it, you can be Naruto's man first, and I'll be behind you." "I don't have to be Naruto's man. As long as you don't let our parents beat me after you become Naruto's man, it's fine." Seeing this situation, Saint was relieved, but at the same time, he couldn't help but laugh. What do they think Naruto's man is? Also Garashi. Saint's eyes stopped at the gentle little boy. This child has ideas and vision beyond ordinary people. Maybe he is the one who can really become Naruto's man. Chapter 5. My name is Mayo Sakurai. I like small animals. Slurp. My dream is to become a gourmet. My name is Shigeki Izaki. My hobby is... The self-introduction is finally back on track. Saint thought. Then he saw a boy in the back row with a serious face stand up and say, "My name is Marino Ibiki. My hobby is interrogation, and my dream is to torture Kage from other villages one day." The corner of Awakening's mouth twitched slightly. Were all children nowadays so dangerous? Finally, it was Garashi's turn to speak. He was already the focus of the crowd, and after the previous incident, even his every move was being watched. Garashi didn't seem to feel the slightest pressure, nor was he impatient at all, and he said with a gentle voice, "I am Shimizu Garashi. My hobby is to make many friends. As for my dream, I hope to become a medical ninja, and use medical ninjutsu to erase the pain of our world." Many people were surprised, not because Garashi's self-introduction was so shocking, but on the contrary, his speech was too ordinary. It was so ordinary that it was incomprehensible. In the system of the major ninja villages, women generally serve as medical ninjas, not only because women pay more attention to details, but also because of the three major rules of medical ninja. Medical ninjas must never be at the forefront of the battlefield, and a man with a little shame would not allow himself to hide in the back. If it were other people, they might be mistaken for deserters, but Garashi is different. When you have a good impression of a person, you will subconsciously beautify the other person. Under this filter, not only did no one think that Garashi was a coward, but they also secretly sighed in their hearts, "Garashi-san is really a gentle person. Down to earth. This kind of temperament can go further on the road of ninja." Saint was now more and more satisfied with Garashi. He actually didn't dislike those who shouted that they wanted to become Naruto, who didn't have a big goal when they were young. It's just that when they grow up, they gradually understand the gap between fantasy and reality. It's precisely because of this that it highlights the preciousness of those excellent and humble people. After Garashi, many people introduced themselves. When it came to the last few seats, everyone's eyes once again gathered on a certain person. It wasn't strange for him to receive this kind of attention, because he was the son of Naruto Asuma. Asuma wasn't afraid at all when he saw everyone looking at him. He didn't stand up either. He just crossed his arms coolly and leaned back in his chair. "I am Asuma. I have many hobbies. My goal is to surpass Naruto." He didn't mention his dream, but his goal. His arrogance was obvious. Unfortunately, the response was mediocre. Children were never short of fantasies. It wasn't that they thought Asuma couldn't achieve his goal, but they simply thought, "Oh, this dream is just that." Asuma's body stiffened when he saw everyone's gaze fly to the back. "Hey, at least give me some reaction." What was even more awkward was that everyone was looking at the person behind him. If he lowered his arm, he would appear to be timid. If he continued to hug her, he would feel that everyone was looking at him as a joke. Uncomfortable. Fortunately, there weren't many people behind him. After they finished their introductions, everyone's eyes returned to the podium. Asuma quickly lowered his stiff arms. Looking at Garashi's back, he couldn't understand why the other party's words of wanting to become a medical ninja caused such a big commotion, but his shocking statement of wanting to surpass Naruto didn't get everyone's attention. Could it be that this was the world of adults? Yes, everyone is already 5 years old, no longer as simple as before. Asuma felt a little melancholy. Ahem. Saint coughed twice to attract everyone's attention. Now that everyone has a basic understanding of each other, let's move on to the last item of this class. Election for the class monitor. Seeing that some of the students showed a puzzled expression, the 8-God Saint explained, "A qualified group must have its own leader. Just as a country needs a daimyo, and a ninja village needs a kage, our class should also have its own class leader." As soon as his voice fell, the class instantly became lively. "Yagami-sensei, can the class monitor have his own title? For example, Bankage? Sensei, can the class monitor get extra points on the graduation exam? Yagami-sensei, if I become the class monitor, will my parents stop beating me?" Saint looked at the little fatty Shinto with a twitching eye. "Just how much did your parents hate you?" Taking a deep breath, Saint said in a deep voice, "The class monitor is not an official position. You can't have a title, you can't get extra points, and you can't stop your parents from beating you. Well, actually, there is still some hope for the last one. In short, the original intention of electing a class monitor is to serve everyone, not to make you do some messy things." Hearing Saint's words, everyone's surging emotions suddenly fell. "TSK boring. Well, I can't even take care of myself, so I don't want to serve everyone." Seeing this situation, the 8 gods felt a bit awkward. Did he go overboard? Before he could say anything to remedy the situation, Garashi raised his right hand. Saint's eyes lit up. Garashi-san, speak. Yagami-sensei, I want to participate in the class monitor election. The eyes of everyone in the class focused on him again. Huh, are you talking about Garashi-san? Although I don't want to be a class monitor, I don't like to be controlled by others. But if it's Garashi-san, it doesn't seem unacceptable. Well, I also support Garashi-san. In the back corner, Asuma awkwardly curled his lips. In the world of ninjas, strength is the foundation. It's stupid to spend time helping others. However, before he finished his words, he found that the girl he has been paying attention to showed an expression of admiration towards Shimizu Garashi. Well, as expected of Garashi-san, Kurenai sat on the right side of Garashi, her eyes flashing a little bit of starlight. Since Garashi sat in the middle of the classroom, the people who were attracted to him sat around him. Therefore, most of the people who didn't want to integrate into his small group sat in the corner. Hearing Asuma's whisper, Mizuki, who was sitting in front of him, nodded subconsciously. That's right. Knowing that it's a thankless task, this kind of person is either stupid or bad, hypocritical. Like Garashi, he is a victim of the Second Shinobi World War. Orphans like him are eager to be recognized by others. Therefore, seeing that Garashi easily got what he dreamed of, a kind of emotion called jealousy grew in his young heart. But he also knows that this kind of thing is not good, so he buried his feelings in his heart. At this moment, seeing that Asuma, the son of Naruto, was the same as himself, he couldn't help but open his heart, hoping to stand on the same side as Asuma, the son of Naruto. I, Asuma, also want to run for class monitor. I think he is doing this to please. Suddenly, the eyes of the two people solidified. The ultimate meaning of backstabbing. Mizuki was at a loss. He finally opened his heart. Why did this noble son of Naruto betray the revolution so quickly? Asuma was also alert, bastard. This guy actually saw that he wanted to please the red-eyed girl. Chapter 6. Asuma didn't want others to know that he was paying attention to the red-eyed girl. So without waiting for Mizuki to finish his words, he gave Mizuki a subtle glare. Mizuki naturally didn't dare to contradict the most powerful second generation in the village, so he hurriedly lowered his head, his eyes full of resentment. At this time, the 8 gods also reacted. Asuma-san, you also want to run for class president? Yes. Asuma proudly raised his head. Why? Am I not qualified? Of course not. As long as you are a member of this class, anyone is qualified to run for class president. The 8 gods only felt a headache, of course. He could see that Asuma's election was more of a joke. However, he wasn't worried about Garashi's failure. He saw very clearly that Asuma's popularity was far worse than Garashi's. What he was really worried about was that Asuma would find trouble with Garashi after losing the election. Although he believed that Naruto, Sama wouldn't care about such a trivial matter. But as the son of Naruto, as long as Asuma wanted, he could easily find someone willing to teach Garashi a lesson. As a member of the Ninja Academy, he was very clear about the existence of campus bullying. And what's more terrible is that under this kind of hidden rules, the intervention of teachers will only make things worse. I can only expand the scope, so that he won't lose so badly. The 8 gods thought, then looked at the others with encouraging eyes, crazily hinting. Is there anyone who wants to run for class president? It doesn't matter. Even if you lose, you don't have to care. It's a pity that among these freshmen, there was no one like Garashi who understood the meaning of the song. And many of them even looked around with righteous indignation. Whoever dares to compete with Garashi-san is going against me, Takatani Ryosuke. Yes, except for Garashi-san, I won't submit to anyone. Let that arrogant guy see that we civilian ninjas are not easy to bully. Seeing this, the 8th saint could only say dryly, then, alright everyone, write down the name of the person you support on the paper, and hand it in after you're done. There's no need to register it. Listening to the rustling sound of writing, the 8 gods sighed secretly. Alas! I can only hope that Asuma's identity as the son of Naruto won't make him lose too badly. Soon, everyone finished writing the notes and brought them to the podium. The 8 saints looked at the voting data, and his expression became very interesting. He rubbed his cheeks with both hands and said, "Ahem, I now announce." Asma shouted, "Wait, teacher, you haven't told me the exact number of votes." 8 Awakenings laughed dryly. "There's no need to announce the exact number of votes, right?" "How can that be?" "Of course, voting has to be fair and open. But if you don't want to announce it, I'll do it myself," the 8 saints said helplessly. "Since you insist, then, all right." Asma jumped up from his seat, and when he passed by Garashi, he glanced at him provocatively. Taking the ballot, he just glanced at it and became excited. "Asma, 1 vote," Asma said loudly, proudly looking at Garashi from the corner of his eyes. Unfortunately, Garashi was smiling and didn't seem to care, which made him feel like he punched cotton. "Humph." Asma grunted twice in dissatisfaction, then continued to look at the pile of papers. "Shimizu Garashi, 1 vote, Shimizu Garashi, 2 votes, Shimizu Garashi." Every time he pulled out a piece of paper, Asma's face became ugly. After counting the last one, Asma said in a hoarse and weak voice, "Asma, 1 vote, Shimizu Garashi, 69 votes, Shimizu Garashi." Victory! The number of students in the ninja school in the original work is too small. Even if you add in the ninja family ninja, it's impossible to imagine how to make up the number of ninja allied forces. So here it's appropriate to increase a little bit. The last sentence seemed to drain all his strength. He lowered his head, and only felt that every gaze was full of ridicule and malice. In fact, no one is laughing at him. People only care about the winner, and for the loser, even ridicule is a waste of energy. That's great. I knew student Shushi would win. It's a pity. I don't know which traitor voted for that guy. At this moment, Asuma finally realized what had happened. That's not right. That vote seems to have been cast by me. At this moment, Asma almost wanted to find a hole to hide in. He was so excited that he didn't even recognize his own handwriting. "Great Garashi-kun, I knew you could do it." Kurenai leaned over and congratulated him with a red face. "Well, thank you for your trust in me." Garashi politely responded to everyone's congratulations. "The honor and cheers are all his, I have nothing." Asma saw this and felt even more sour in his heart. He couldn't help but shout with red eyes, "Shimizu Garashi, this time I lost, but now I want to challenge you again. Let's use the ninja method to determine the winner." Yagami frowned. "Asma-san, you should have learned how to refine chakra. You are already half a ninja. Don't you think it's too much to bully an ordinary person like Garashi?" Asma asked dumbfoundedly, "Huh? He doesn't have chakra yet?" From the age of 5 to 15, the human body develops the fastest, and it's also the best age to practice ninjutsu. Because of this, the ninja school opened classes at the age of 5 to teach children of the right age to refine chakra. However, just as there are no 2 identical leaves in the world, there are real differences between people. People with good physical fitness can refine chakra in advance, and it's impossible for the ninja school to let every student be stuck at the age of 5 to enter the school. Therefore, practicing chakra in advance is generally the patent of big ninjas, and this advantage under the unspoken rules is actually a tacit understanding of everyone. Yagami nodded. "Garashi-san is different from you. He doesn't have a special teacher to teach him. It seems he's the one who doesn't have anything." Asma subconsciously opened his mouth, and after a long while, he apologized in a low voice. I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't know ninjutsu." Everyone looked at this scene with surprise. This arrogant guy doesn't seem so annoying anymore. Yagami also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, Naruto, Sama's son can't be that kind of unreasonable person. Humph, but don't expect this matter to be over. When you learn ninjutsu, I will challenge you again. Asma looked firmly at Garashi. "I just want to prove that only the weak like you will huddle together for warmth." From the beginning, Garashi didn't have the same worries as Yagami. Whether it's the portrayal of the original historical trajectory or his own observation, he can be sure that Asma is not the kind of arrogant and domineering second-generation kid. At best, he can only be regarded as a rebellious kid who wants to attract the attention of his father and some people. To deal with this kind of kid, Sometimes, you have to be even more childish than them. Asuma-san, the real strong don't need to prove anything. Asuma's body trembled slightly, calmed down, and rethought the words Garashi said before. He seems to smell the breath of the same kind. Then tell me, what kind of person can be regarded as the real strong? Of course, the person who can practice his ninjutsu and be unwavering. Asuma subconsciously wanted to nod, but thinking of his current position, he forcibly restrained the desire to nod his head. So, I will accept your challenge. Ah, what did you say? Didn't I already say before? Only those who are recognized by everyone can be Naruto. Garashi said word by word. And this is my ninjutsu. Many people were still confused, but Asuma already understood. So, you want to get my approval to accept the challenge? Strong, you are the real strong. Everyone was at a loss. Why did the touching words spoken by Garashi have an inexplicable sense of shame when spoken by Asuma? This must be because the person who spoke was different. Asuma didn't care about the strange gazes of the people. He was gradually getting into a good mood. Fighting with a strong person like you has always been my pursuit. You can say a definite time. If Asuma is the dominant ninjutsu, then Garashi is the implicit ninjutsu. After all, he still has to take care of his own image. As long as he says some ambiguous words to let Asuma interpret him as a close friend of the ninjutsu, it will be fine. Then half a month, no matter if I win or lose, I will do my best. Only half a month. Then I won't take advantage of you. I will tell you my chakra refining method to help you master chakra as soon as possible. Hey wait, the 8 saints hurriedly shouted. You leaked the Sarutobi clan's chakra refining method. Garashi will be held responsible. Who told you it's the Sarutobi clan's chakra refining method? Asuma squinted his eyes and said coolly. Don't forget, that person is called the ninjutsu professor. Oh, so it was developed by Naruto-sama. The 8 saints suddenly understood. Then the corner of his eyes twitched. What kind of strange name is that person? He always felt that Naruto-sama's son was not normal. Chapter 7. In the woods at the back of the ninja school, the afterglow of the setting sun gradually disappeared on the horizon. Asuma was like a soulless stone statue, standing in the woods and muttering to himself. Impossible, impossible. Beside him, Garashi played with the silk thread at his fingertips and asked, Asuma-san, is this chakra? Asuma came back to his senses and looked at Garashi with a complicated expression. How could he learn how to refine chakra so quickly? Could it be that my talent as a ninja is inferior to his? A person with average talent would take about half a month to a month to learn how to refine chakra. But a genius could do it in 3 days. This was what his tutor, a Tokubetsu Jonin, said when he refined chakra in 3 days. He didn't think that Garashi would take half a month to learn how to refine chakra. As a strong person recognized by him, it was reasonable for him to learn how to refine chakra in 5 days. However, it hasn't even been 10 minutes since I started teaching him. If I'm a genius, then what is he? Asuma stared at Garashi as if he was looking at a monster, and finally couldn't help but ask, how did you succeed in refining chakra in 1 try? Garashi shook his head slightly. Actually, this is not the first time I've refined chakra. Asuma was confused. Didn't you say that no one taught you how to refine chakra? Maybe you don't know, Asuma-san, but I've been working as a nurse for patients in the hospital. Although I don't have chakra myself, I've actually seen nurses refining chakra many times. Garashi explained with a smile. And today didn't Yagami-sensei talk a lot about chakra system theory? Did he? Asuma asked in a daze. It wasn't that he was absent-minded or sleeping in class, but that he had learned this knowledge in advance. However, he had never paid attention to theory. In his opinion, it was better to practice hand seals with time. Garashi wasn't surprised by Asuma's reaction. In the ninja school, theoretical knowledge has never been valued. What the teachers value more is the student's practical operation and the ability to adapt on the spot. Therefore, in some theoretical exams, the school not only does not prohibit cheating, but even encourages the students to cheat, as long as the cheating method is not too obvious. Of course there is. Garashi's tone, he said slowly. Today, I learned how to refine chakra based on some of my previous understanding of chakra. Unfortunately, the refining method, I thought I was still too rough. Today, Asuma-san, I didn't succeed. I've to refine after you taught me how to refine chakra. Oh, so that's the case. With so much foreshadowing, Asuma felt that it was much easier to accept. But what he didn't know was that just by watching others refine chakra and understanding the theory of chakra, he was able to reverse the method of refining chakra. In fact, this is far more terrible than refining chakra for the first time. With that, Asuma said full of energy, "You are indeed my destined enemy. But I want to remind you that chakra is only the foundation. Ninjutsu is the foundation of ninja. Those mediocre ninjas may take a few years to learn the most basic 3 body techniques. But for talented geniuses like us, the rules are broken." Garashi nodded in agreement. Yes, the world has never been fair. Seeing that Soseki agreed with his point of view, Asuma was even happier. For the first time, he felt like he had a confidant. "Let's go. I'll treat you to Ichiraku ramen." Ichiraku ramen has been around for a long time. Kakashi and Obito also ate it when they were young. "I'll treat you. Without your help, I would be very troubled today. But is the relief money given by the village enough?" Asuma hesitated. He also knew that Garashi's family was not very well off. "Have you forgotten? I'm still helping out in the hospital." Garashi smiled warmly like a small son. At least, treating a friend to a meal of Ichiraku ramen is not a problem. Friend, is this what friends are like? Asuma whispered to himself. He only felt that his nose was sour. And then he quickly changed the topic. "By the way, I saw that your skill in controlling the chakra thread was very good. How did you do it?" "Well, it's mainly a test of the coordination and control of the body and mind. If you want to learn, I suggest you start with ordinary suture surgery. By the way, you can pick up a lot of animal skin in the market that hasn't been peeled clean." Seeing Garashi talking about such a terrible thing in the most gentle tone, Asuma couldn't help but laugh twice. "Ha! Haha, forget it. I don't plan to be a puppet master or a medical ninja." Sandame Naruto's house. Today should be Asuma's first day of school, right? Seeing that Asuma didn't come home so late, Sandame rubbed his eyebrows and sighed. It's only the first day, and he's already so worrisome. "Naruto, Sama, you may have misunderstood young Master Asuma this time." The ninja standing beside him replied respectfully. Ebisu's title for Woodleaf Maru was Young Master. "Oh." Sandame looked to the side with some surprise. He knew that although Takeuchi Daichi was a smooth person, he would never dare to lie to him about this kind of thing. "Can you tell me what happened?" "According to the news I received, young Master Asuma's performance in school today was very outstanding. He was the only one in the class who wanted to serve everyone, and he ran for the position of class monitor. Although he lost the election, young Master Asuma became friends with him in the end." Takeuchi Daichi simplified the process in the middle. Young Master Asuma didn't come home today because he wanted to help his friend master the method of refining chakra as soon as possible. "Oh, Asuma lost." Sandame's eyes lit up. Although his son's personality was a bit rebellious, his talent was not bad. Coupled with the fact that he was Naruto's son, he didn't expect that he would lose the election. But the more he listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. "Appreciate each other? Friend? Help?" Sandame's mouth twitched. "Your words make me even more confused. Can you tell me the details of the incident?" Takeuchi Daichi awkwardly took out a document and handed it to Sandame. Looking at the records in the document, Sandame's eyes twitched. Asuma's performance was indeed very outstanding. Yes, his old eyes were almost blinded by the light. But soon, his attention was attracted by another person mentioned in the document. The descendant of a civilian ninja who died in the war? It's really hard for him to have such a positive attitude. Sandame sighed slightly, but at this time, his eyes were suddenly attracted by a sentence on the document, and he couldn't look away. It's not that only the Hokage can be recognized by everyone, but only the one who is recognized by the people can become the Hokage. This belief. Sandame was really moved this time. He couldn't imagine that such words came from the mouth of a 5-year-old child. I saw the glory of the will of fire in him. It's because of juniors like him that everything we do has meaning, and the will of the heroes who sacrificed themselves in the war can be passed down. After pondering for a moment, Sandaime said, "Remember to remind me about the battle in half a month." Takeuchi Daichi was surprised. "Naruto-sama, are you going to personally?" Sandaime smiled. "Don't think too much. I'm just concerned about my son's performance as a father." Takeuchi Daichi's face suddenly understood. "Isn't it just a tool? I understand." Chapter 8. At night. Woodleaf Hidden Village. In a somewhat dilapidated wooden house outside the Fifth Ring Road. The light emitted from the kerosene lamp filled the entire room. Garashi sat at the table. His eyes were scattered. His right hand holding a hard pen was casually writing and drawing on the paper. These were the words of his previous world, and they were written very carelessly. Even in that world, these scribbles were almost impossible to be recognized by anyone. This also makes it so that if someone finds out what he is doing, they will only think that it is a random scribble in a state of absent-mindedness. Some of his original plans for the near future are written on it, but the future is not static. Of course, his plans will change. I didn't expect that I am really a genius. Thinking of this evening's matter, Garashi couldn't help but laugh. He originally intended to establish himself as a genius in order to compete for more resources. This is not difficult. If talent determines a person's upper limit, then hard work determines a person's lower limit. At least in Garashi's view, it is possible to build yourself into an ordinary genius through hard work and efficient learning methods. In this ninja world, geniuses are not synonymous with stability. Assassinations from hostile ninja villages and internal strife may cause geniuses to die midway. As Garashi himself knows, there are actually many talented freshmen in his batch, but in the original track of history, they didn't even leave their names. Mediocrity can indeed be a temporary protection, but the price is that it may be mediocre forever. He has no bloodline, no dojutsu, no background. If he doesn't strive for resources, maybe one mission, one war will make Shimizu Garashi's name disappear forever in the long river of history. Not even a ripple can be aroused. Especially when he knows the future Third and Fourth World War. This kind of pressure is even more urgent. Since the risk is unavoidable, Garashi is more willing to take the initiative in his own hands. At least, he doesn't want to be unable to make a decision about his death. And thinking optimistically, although these risks are unavoidable, the degree of risk can be adjusted by oneself. The way Garashi chooses is to get closer to Sandaime. No matter what Sandaime's reputation is, he's much more reliable than Danzo. Of course, this didn't mean that becoming friends with Asuma meant that they were close to the third King Yinluo. The third King Yinluo could watch the Thousand Hands clan disappear, and he could bear to see the hero's son being bullied. Naturally, he wouldn't change his stance just because of Asuma's friend. However, this didn't mean that the Sandaime-sama was evil beyond redemption. As a politician, that was a mature and reasonable approach. The reason why the Senju clan was truly integrated into Woodleaf was because he had truly inherited Hashirama's philosophy. He wanted the people in the village to understand that going familial was inevitable. Making Naruto suffer was actually to make it easier for him to control this humanoid nuclear weapon. This high-risk weapon, if not controlled by the leader, is indeed a potential disaster. His way of thinking wasn't wrong. What was wrong was his method of doing things and his lack of control. Of course, this had nothing to do with Garashi. The only thing he had to do was to use Minato as a template. Civilian ninja, excellent talent, not limited to his own interests, willing to selflessly contribute to the village. This is simply the perfect embodiment of the will of fire. Garashi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Even if there's already Minato, I think the third King Yinluo would never mind having Shimizu Garashi. The more heirs of the will of fire, the more it shows that his political views and approach are correct. As long as he could become the heir of the will of fire in the eyes of the third King Yinluo, he would have absolute safety in Woodleaf. The third King Yinluo could tolerate Danzo's nonsense in some small matters, but when it came to his ideals and path, it was absolutely impossible to take a step back. because that would be a complete denial of his life and beliefs. Therefore, from the beginning, Garashi didn't think that the identity of Asuma's friend could affect the third king Yinluo much. What he really wanted to do was to use Asuma as a channel to convey his ideas to the third king Yinluo. When Garashi wasn't sure about his talent, he decisively accepted this duel because winning or losing was no longer the main purpose of this battle. Winning, there was a way to win, and losing, there was also a way to lose. Of course, he still wanted to win this battle as much as possible. My talent seems to be better than I thought. It seems that as an ordinary genius, maybe I should consider a more perfect opening such as. Garashi's eyes looked through the window and fell on the dark street. Maybe I should meet Tsunade by chance? Although he himself was more interested in Genjutsu, because of some experience in his previous life, the future of medical ninjutsu seems to be brighter. And the most important reason why he chose to start with medical ninjutsu is because of Tsunade, or Shikatsu forest behind Tsunade. As a ninja, Senjutsu is undoubtedly the best choice for him to strengthen himself. Not to mention, all three Senjutsu can be accompanied by a powerful summon beast. One of the reasons why he chose to become a medical ninjutsu is to prepare for this. Chakra is formed by the complete fusion of physical energy, spiritual energy, and natural energy. The three must maintain a balance of 1/3 of each. Otherwise, there will be a danger of erosion by the power of nature. This requires extremely precise control of chakra, so he began to practice body control when he didn't even have chakra. As for why he chose Tsunade, the reason is actually very simple. She is better than the other two people. Needless to say, Orochimaru is his disciple. Who knows when he will be planted with the mark of love? As for Jiraiya, with the prophecy of Child of Prophecy, it is impossible for him to casually accept disciples, especially when he has Nagato on the outside and Minato on the inside. Although Tsunade's willpower is depressed, such a person is the best choice for him. Not to mention, there is also a bridge in his class for him to communicate with. Should I contact Shizen now? Garashi didn't think much about it and rejected this choice. Although he is the class leader, it would be strange for him to suddenly be so courteous to Shizen. It is best to let Shizen take the initiative to contact him. Then what about Genjutsu? With Kurenai as the foundation, it is not impossible to contact her father. Garashi silently said to himself. For someone like him who has no background, the easiest way to get the initial funds is of course to eat soft rice. Although eating soft rice from a 5-year-old little girl can't be described as shameful, he doesn't have much choice. Sometimes life is like this, one step slow, one step slow. I still can't do it. If I'm too impatient, there's a danger that my character will collapse. The best way is actually to take advantage of the situation after winning this duel. But this is back to the starting point. I have to defeat Asuma first. After thinking for a moment, Garashi laughed at himself in his heart. Oh, I seem to be putting the cart before the horse. Defeating Asuma is to gain attention and avoid risks. But if I act too impatiently, it might put me in danger. Moreover, to defeat Asuma, I don't need to go to that extent. I only need 1 or 2 basic ninjutsu, plus some psychological hints. Shushi yawned and looked at the paper full of scribbles. He pretended to shake his head helplessly, then put the paper on the kerosene lamp and lit it. He waited for the paper to burn, then stretched his body and walked to the bed. Tomorrow I'll get my first ninjutsu. As for the senjutsu and genjutsu, I'll wait until this matter is over and then slowly plan. PS1. I'm not trying to whitewash the third generation. In fact, in my eyes, everyone is a complicated individual. They are contradictory bodies made up of all kinds of intricate and complicated personalities. It's too arbitrary to judge a person with a black or white or a black or white or black view. Just like Sandaime-sama, in my opinion, he is not a qualified father, not a qualified teacher, and can't even be regarded as a good person in the subjective sense. But as a Kage of the village, from the perspective of those civilians and ordinary people, he should be called a qualified Kage. After all, politicians should be a kind of ruthless existence, too emotional, maybe a disaster for the collective. In short, It is difficult to find a real bad person in this book. For the portrayal of characters, I will try to judge from an objective and fair point of view. When I write about the death of the White Fang, I will say a few words, because I really don't think that a strong person will be weak enough to choose to commit suicide because of some rumors, especially when his son is only 6 or 7 years old. PS2. Again, some readers may have doubts about my claim that Sandaime is a qualified Kage, because under his leadership, Konoha fell from the peak. But in fact, when Sandaime-sama took over with Leaf, the first and second Dame-sama had already died, and the village had no fighting power except for Uzumaki Mito, and at that time, it was in the Second Shinobi World War. Under this situation of internal and external troubles, Sandaime-sama took over with Leaf, and brought with Leaf back to the peak. In the era where the protagonist is now, Sandaime-sama is at the peak. The White Fang Sannin is also famous, and the patriarchs of the major clans have also grown up. It can be said that it is the best era. Although Konoha's subsequent decline is also a fact, but looking at history, it can be said that it is very rare to have a wise ruler in power for a period of time, and there are too few leaders who cannot make mistakes when they are old, so I said that Sandaime is at least qualified as a Kage. Chapter 9. No, you can't touch there. If you keep doing this, I'm really going to get angry. Seeing that little son had turned into a little pufferfish, the group of wolf-like young nurses finally withdrew their evil hands in embarrassment. Garashi sighed and rubbed his cheeks. He really did not pretend to be angry, but because his soft and smooth face was really about to be pinched and swollen. In a sense, the reason he became an otaku in his previous life was inseparable from these scary women. Wasn't it just that he was a little cute? Was it necessary to stroke him like a cat or a dog? Sigh, I'd better not think about it. Although it's superficial, I'm still the beneficiary of this superficial model. Perhaps it was because of the quantum entanglement of the two spacetimes. His current appearance was not much different from when he was a child in his previous life. Therefore, he could already foresee more trouble after his cuteness turned into handsomeness. Of course, this kind of trouble could also turn into a hidden resource under certain circumstances. For example, living off a woman. Little Garashi, aren't you in school now? Why do you still have time to come to the hospital? Hee little Garashi, do you miss your sisters? Sigh without little Shushi to rub my shoulders. There's nothing to look forward to in these boring days. Although they no longer touched him, these young nurses still launched a sharp verbal attack. Seeing that Garashi's little face was red, the oldest head nurse stood up and said, Okay. Is it that you're not busy enough with your work at hand, or that you're not taking care of enough patients? Tell me, I'll make arrangements for you. Although she was the oldest, she was actually only around 30 years old. However, compared to these young nurses who were 16 or 17 years old, she was indeed a senior. Hearing her words, the surrounding young nurses instantly dispersed. Even if it was not wartime, the special nature of ninjas meant that they were destined to not be too stable. Therefore, Woodleaf Hospital had always been overloaded. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted a child laborer like Garashi. Of course, this was also because Garashi did a good job. In terms of internal affairs, he alone could free up 3 people's manpower for the hospital. At this moment, the head nurse, Yayoi, pressed her hands on her knees, bent her waist, and narrowed her eyes as she asked Garashi, Garashi, did you encounter any difficulties in school? The few young ladies who were willing to work overtime to stay were also nervous. Could it be that little Garashi was bullied? They also graduated from the Ninja Academy. Of course, they knew the unspoken rules of the school. Big family, commoner, orphan. Damn it, if anyone dares to bully you, I will definitely not let them off. That's right. That bastard better pray that he never comes to the hospital. When they thought that Garashi might be bullied, they couldn't wait to go back to school, block the school gate, and beat up those who dared to bully Garashi. Yumiko-san, Misa-san, Kotoko-san, Aunt Yaya-san, thank you. Garashi's heart was filled with warmth. Although he was more rational than emotional, in this world, there were still fetters that he recognized. Actually, I'm doing very well in school. My classmates are also very united. By the way, I'm now the class monitor, and I've made a lot of new friends. While little Garashi is really amazing. Phew, that's good. Hey, if Keiho-san knew, she would be very happy. Oh, sorry. Misa-san, you don't have to apologize. Besides, you're not wrong. Garashi's expression was calm, but there was some longing in his eyes. I'm doing very well now. If my mother knew, she would be very happy. Seeing that Garashi didn't seem to be faking it, the others sighed in relief. Of course, they didn't care about Garashi for such superficial reasons. Garashi's mother used to be a member of Woodleaf's medical class. She was also Yayo's close friend and Yumiko's tutor. They were the most precious treasures left behind by Garashi's parents, and had helped him through the most difficult period of his life. Of course, Garashi himself was also a bonus. An obedient and sensible child was much more likable than those naughty children. By the way, Shushi, did you come here today to share this good news with us? Midai asked with a smile. Clearly, he was very happy. You can say that. In addition to reassuring Aunt Yayoi, I also have 2 things to say. Garashi said with a serious expression. Say it, we're listening. The eyes of the 3 lit up. Garashi's tense expression was really too cute. Even Yayoi's hands were itching to move. She had never had much resistance to this kind of contrast. Garashi didn't seem to realize the approaching danger, and said seriously. The first thing is that I want to explain the situation to Yanai-sama. In the future, I can only come to the hospital to help on weekends. As he said that, Garashi's expression became a bit nervous. It's okay even if you don't have the money, as long as you don't make me leave. That's it. Yayo couldn't help but laugh. Little Garashi, this time you've underestimated your role. These days when you weren't here, the hospital's drug management and hospital bed turnover were almost paralyzed. Every day, the class leader and the others were worried about whether to bring you back for a few more days. Kotoko nodded again and again. Without the process you set, our work is too troublesome. Misa complained. Kazumi's work schedule is too bad. I don't know how I survived these days. Yumiko smiled and joked. Chiangong and the others were so happy to see you. They were not just looking forward to your massage. Ah, then I'll go and take a look. Garashi calmly said. In fact, the process is very simple. First, we need to understand everyone's living habits and try to eliminate the interference of time factors. Second, we need to estimate everyone's chakra amount and chakra recovery speed. This way, we can achieve the highest efficiency. And finally, Yayo couldn't help but ask, Garashi, where did you get this information? Garashi puzzled. Isn't this something that can be known by observation? Looking at Garashi's matter-of-fact appearance, Yumiko and the other 2 let out a slackers. No, a normal person's sorrowful cry. Can this kind of thing be done by a normal person? Ahem. Misa awkwardly but politely smiled. I seem to know why Kazumi is so aggrieved. Is this the domain of geniuses? Yayoi sighed and immediately smiled. But this is also good. At least, Garashi's importance can't be replaced. Well, Garashi, what's the second thing you want to say? Hearing this, Garashi sternly said. Aunt Yayoi, I want you to teach me medical ninjutsu. Chapter 10. Medical Ninjutsu? Yayoi was startled and immediately refused with a smile. It's still too early for you. Yumiko smiled and said, It's really rare to see Garashi, who is as calm as a little adult. Yayoi-san didn't teach you ninjutsu for your own good. Only by having a solid foundation can you go further on the road of ninja. Misa also nodded. The most important thing for you now is to learn how to refine chakra, and then try to improve your control of chakra to the point where you can learn medical ninjutsu before graduation. Strengthen my control of chakra? Garashi stretched out his right hand, and thin lines danced on his fingertips, weaving a pattern of wood leaf forehead protector in front of the four people. Then Garashi asked with a dignified expression with some expectation, Is this okay? The four people opposite him looked as if they had seen a ghost. Yumiko said to herself in a daze, I must be dreaming, I must be. Kotoko looked as if she had been played with. She tilted her head and said, Oh, I still can't control chakra to this extent. Yayoi was stunned for a moment, then suddenly turned back and asked, Did you teach little Garashi how to refine chakra? Her voice was very harsh, obviously annoyed by the three people's nonsense. They were only in the middle and lower class of the ninja world, and they didn't have a clear idea of when they could start refining chakra. They were also worried that their careless guidance would harm Garashi, so they chose to believe in authority and let the ninja school teach them uniformly. Garashi quickly said, Aunt Yayoi, the method of refining chakra was taught to me by the ninja school teacher yesterday. Yayoi listened and asked with some disbelief. In other words, it only took you 2 days to learn how to refine chakra. Actually, it was only 1 day. I seem to have refined chakra on the 16th day. Misa touched her delicate chin with her fingertips and couldn't help but look to the side and asked, Kotoko, how many days did it take you? I took 17 days. Yumiko's talent should be the best among us. It only took 14 days. Kotoko said, Little Shushi is amazing. Maybe he will become a big shot in the future. Yumiko said excitedly after she came back to her senses. At this time Garashi explained, In fact, I'm not that great. It's mostly thanks to Asuma-san. Asuma? Yes, he is the son of the third generation, Yuanfei Asuma. So he is the son of the third generation. No wonder. Shushi, you've made some great friends. After hearing that the other party was Sandame's son, their doubts disappeared in an instant. When Sandame Naruto died in battle, Sandame took over from Naruto and led Woodleaf to win the war, creating the heyday of Woodleaf. He himself is known to be proficient in 5 types of chakra ninjutsu and has the title of ninjutsu professor. Therefore, Sandame's reputation in Woodleaf can be said to be like the sun in the sky. In the eyes of Yayoi and the others, he is almost like a god. Even if he is only the son of Sandame Naruto, they think that it is natural for him to do this kind of thing. Garashi struck while the iron was hot. This is also the suggestion that Asuma-san gave me. He has learned more than one ninjutsu. He thinks that people like us who follow the rules will only waste our talent. Yayoi nodded again and again. The son of Sandame must have been taught by Sandame himself. In other words, this is the evaluation of Sandame. Well, geniuses are used to break the rules. Our little Garashi is a real genius. Oh, then we have to hurry up and teach little Garashi ninjutsu. Otherwise, little Garashi will fall too far behind other people. This is also the reason why Garashi set himself up as a genius. In the world of ninjas, people are always tolerant of geniuses. If Garashi's performance is mediocre, no matter how he begs, Yayoi will not teach him ninjutsu, because step-by-step is the best protection for beginners. But if he is a genius, then no matter what he does, it is understandable, because they don't understand the world of geniuses, so they will take all this for granted, especially when Garashi's talent is beyond their knowledge. Now they are beginning to worry that they have mastered too few ninjutsu. Maybe they will drag down Garashi's talent. Let's count the C-class and below medical ninjutsu. See what you have learned, but I haven't learned yet. Yayoi said with a serious face. I'll go first. Apart from the most basic healing spells, I also know hemostasis, blood creation, silence, and healing connection. Mesa said as she counted with her fingers. I am similar to you. The main thing is that I have purification. I also have tranquility. It can calm people who are attacked by jinjutsu. In Wood Leaf, in addition to the ninjutsu developed by the caster himself, and the secret ninjutsu of the family, only ninjutsu below B-class can be privately taught. Although B-class ninjutsu have almost no sense of existence in the later stages. In fact, B-class ninjutsu can be regarded as the trump card of ordinary chunin. Even for some tokubetsu jonin, B-class ninjutsu is still their main means of combat. In a sense, B-class and above ninjutsu can be regarded as the strategic resource reserve of a ninja village. Once it is leaked, it is likely to mean the weakening of their own military power and the strengthening of the enemy ninja village. Therefore, when Yayoi and the others learn this advanced ninjutsu, they have to set a seal at the same time to ensure that the village's ninjutsu will not be leaked. After counting, Kotoko said with a bitter face, "Huh? None of us know offensive medical ninjutsu." Yumiko looked nervous. We medical ninjutsu have never been good at fighting. But little Garashi is the class leader. He will definitely be challenged by others in the future. Yayoi also frowned and said, "Although my chakra scalpel can be used as an attack, it is only effective in close combat." Seeing several people frowning, Garashi hurriedly said, "Aunt Yayoi, as long as you can teach me the most basic healing ninjutsu, it will be enough." Healing ninjutsu? Yayoi frowned. "This is just a D-class ninjutsu. It is a waste of your talent to choose this. This is not a graduation gift, don't be too nervous." Garashi was a little helpless. He seems to have underestimated the impact of this news on Aunt Yayoi and the others. Midai was taken aback at first, but then he shook his head and sighed. "I was just saying that you weren't mature enough, but now it seems that I'm the most impatient one. When I heard you say that, I immediately thought of the graduation gift." Shushi smiled. "Doesn't this mean that you're more concerned about me than yourself, Auntie Midai?" Yayoi smiled half gently and half helplessly. "Sometimes, you are so mature that it makes people feel distressed." Garashi smiled and did not speak. Yayoi shook her head and walked in the direction of the infirmary. "Let's go. I will give you a demonstration now. P.S. Graduation gift is one of the 2 things I added. I will mention it here first. There will be a detailed explanation later. It is mainly to explain why those big families let their family members enter the ninja school to study, and why the second generation developed so many forbidden ninjutsu." Chapter 11. Along the way, the nurses they met all greeted them warmly. When they arrived at the infirmary, Garashi's hair was already a mess. "Yayoi-senpai, is there anything I can help you with?" Seeing them, the nurse on duty walked up, but at the same time, her gaze drifted to Garashi who was standing behind Yayoi. "I'm looking for Captain Nanoyu," Yayoi said concisely. Oh, Captain Nanoyu is right in front, I'll bring you there." The infirmary wasn't very big, and they reached it after a few steps. Then, the nurse received her payment without any qualms. Hee, little Garashi's touch is really super awesome. After a round of ravaging, she finally left satisfied. At this time Nanoyu also noticed them. "Yayoi, what's the matter?" She wasn't very old, only around 20 years old, but her medical skills had already surpassed most people. So Yayoi and the others were very respectful to her. Hearing her ask, Yayoi told her about Garashi's worries. Nanoyu was startled, and looked at Garashi with a gentle smile. Little Garashi is still as gentle as before. "You know about the hospital's predicament, so you took the initiative to make this request, right?" Garashi tilted his head, and pretended to be a student of the Grim Reaper. I don't understand what you mean, Sister Nanoyu." It's because of his own experience that he developed the habit of not causing trouble for others as much as possible. But how many of those children with similar experiences can be as mature as Garashi? Maybe I can give those sensitive children a home. Nanoyu looked at Garashi in a daze, a thought quietly growing in her heart. Mei Sha and the others also came to a realization, looking at Garashi with eyes full of love and pride. Compared to their little brother at home, Garashi was really too easy to worry about. "By the way, Captain, there's one more thing. Yayo didn't think that Yunayu would refuse, so she didn't think too much about it. Can you arrange a patient for me who needs healing? That's not a problem at all." Nayu immediately agreed and asked with some doubt. But why did you suddenly ask for this? Yayoi narrowed her eyes and smiled. I'm going to demonstrate the details of the healing spell to Garashi. Healing spell? Garashi should have seen it many times. Nanoyu's expression changed. You want to teach Garashi ninjutsu? Yayoi smiled and nodded. To be able to become the medical class monitor at the age of 20, Nanoyu's intelligence was naturally extremely high. He instantly figured out the crux of the matter. Garashi has already learned how to refine chakra, and he is very talented in controlling chakra. Actually, it's mainly because Naruto, Sama's son, helped Garashi. Although she said so, Yayoi couldn't hide the pride on her face. So it's because of Naruto-sama? As a former elite of Root, she thought far more than Yayoi. However, this was also the main reason why Garashi pulled Asuma out as a shield. Although he wasn't sure if Danzo would be interested in him, it wasn't wrong to label him as a member of Naruto's faction in advance. Room 47. A ninja with 3 long and narrow scratches on his shoulder was lying on the hospital bed. Were you scratched by a wild beast? Yayoi glanced at him and asked. The ninja on the hospital bed was a little embarrassed. I encountered an accident while carrying out a decoff mission. Misa and the others slightly twitched the corner of their mouth. Carrying out a mission sounded very serious, but if it was a D-class mission, then it was completely different. In a sense, he was indeed a genius if he could encounter an accident while carrying out a mission that required him to pick up trash. Of course, as kind medical staff, they wouldn't point it out directly, lest the patient refused to cooperate out of shame. Yayoi stepped forward, and a light green light flashed in her palm. Garashi, I know you have seen us use healing techniques many times, but that's when you don't have chakra. Now, use your chakra to sense it, and tell me what's the difference between our chakra. Okay. Garashi's face was serious as he stretched out his right hand and created a ball of chakra, then merged his chakra with Aunt Yayoi's chakra. Closing his eyes, he sensed the difference between the two. This is the aura of vitality. Garashi suddenly opened his eyes. He was keenly aware that his chakra seemed to be lacking something compared to Aunt Yayoi's chakra. You actually understood it so quickly. Yayoi was surprised, but more than that, she was happy and gratified. Although it may be too early to tell you this, but to become a medical ninja, you must first understand the essence of medical ninjutsu. With that, Yayoi put her hands on the injured part of the patient, and under the soft light of chakra, 3 terrible wounds of 10 centimeters long began to slowly heal. Taking advantage of the time when chakra was working, Yayoi asked again. Garashi, did you see it clearly? It's a change. Garashi pondered for a moment and said seriously, chakra itself has no attributes, but just like fire release and wind release, it can produce a corresponding nature change after being given an attribute, and our medical ninjutsu should also be a kind of release with an attribute, right? The ninja lying on the hospital bed couldn't help but ask. Ninja school has begun to teach you the nature change? Garashi shook his head. I went to the library to look for information today, and combined it with theory. I guessed it myself. Huh. The ninja who didn't deserve to be named looked at him blankly. He looked at Misa and the others again, and saw that they were all taking it for granted, and he couldn't help but fall into a state of doubt. I'm a genin, am I a fake? Yayoi didn't care. A tool that doesn't cause trouble is a good tool. In addition to the 5 basic attributes of release and bloodline limit, there are actually 2 types of release, yang release and in release. Garashi thoughtfully said, so the essence of medical ninjutsu is yang release? Misa and the others quietly pricked up their ears. It was the first time they heard this. Yayoi nodded slightly. The attribute of life from the body is yang release. And in addition to medical ninjutsu, yang release actually includes some secret ninjutsu, such as the Akimichi clan's multiple transformation jutsu. Misa and the others felt that their fantasy was shattered. The meatball ninjutsu used by the Akimichi clan and the medical ninjutsu they used were essentially the same. They wouldn't become fat people like the Akimichi clan in the future, would they? Thinking of that terrible scene, they instinctively shuddered. Aunt Yayoi, I have one more question. Go ahead. Each of us has our own attributes of the 5 elements. And only after using chakra paper to test the chakra attribute can we begin to change the nature of the corresponding attribute. However, I don't think I've ever seen a test about yin and yang attributes. So how do you determine whether a person is qualified to practice medical ninjutsu or jinjutsu? The 3 nodded subconsciously. The 3 major systems of ninjutsu, taijutsu and jinjutsu. Although most ninjas choose to specialize in one of them, it's not like they don't have the qualifications to practice the other 2, right? Ha! Yayoi blinked. This question seemed to have entered her knowledge blind spot. After a moment of contemplation, she said with uncertainty, "In the village, the recommendation is generally made by the team leader Chunin or Jonin, but I'm not very clear about the specific process. However, Garashi, you don't have to worry too much. Aunt believes that you must have talent in this area." Garashi nodded and no longer asked. He had some guesses about yang release and yin release, but it was unlikely that he would be able to get more information from Aunt Midai. After all, the strongest among them, Aunt Yayoi, is just a chunin. What they know is not necessarily the truth of this world. Chapter 12. Medical ninjutsu can't heal injuries too quickly. Even the advanced medical ninjutsu immortal palm technique takes at least 5 minutes to treat such a large-scale scratch for a normal medical ninja. Therefore, during this free time, Yayoi continued to explain, medical ninjutsu uses hand seals to make the body energy and chakra active, and then let this part of chakra flow in the body according to a specific combination and release it. Garashi said according to his own understanding. Can you explain it this way? Chakra is a known number, ninjutsu is a formula, and hand seals are auxiliary calculation tools. The more powerful the ninjutsu, the more complicated the formula is, and the more hand seals are auxiliary calculation tools. The final result is the ninjutsu we need to release. It was the first time Yayoi heard such a novel explanation. She subconsciously felt that Garashi's words were very reasonable. But ninjas don't pay attention to basic teaching, so she was a little uncertain. Why do you think so? Garashi said seriously. Today, I read Introduction to Chakra, Ninjutsu Encyclopedia, Essence of Ninjutsu, and many other books in the library. But they all said that the 3 keys to using ninjutsu are to have enough chakra, the correct hand seals, and a complete ninjutsu style. Misa on the side was puzzled. What's wrong with that? But I heard that Naruto, the founder of the Wood Leaf clan, can heal injuries without hand seals. Garashi said in a deep voice. That is to say, the process of hand seals can be omitted, right? In Garashi's view, if hand seals are a calculation tool, then Hashirama is a master of mental arithmetic, and he can directly skip the tedious process in the middle. It seems that you have also noticed the effect of hand seals on medical ninjutsu. Yayoi sighed. Every second we spend in the process of hand seals may be transferred to the injured person as a price, so every medical ninja must spend a lot of time practicing hand seals. However, even Tsunade-sama can't heal injuries without hand seals, so don't think too much about it, and don't neglect the practice of hand seals. Garashi nodded vigorously. I will. His vision is very long-term, but it's not that he wants to surpass others without trying to understand. This kind of person can't go far. Seeing that Garashi didn't have the self-paranoia of ordinary geniuses, Yayoi was also relieved, and then she continued to explain. Medical ninjutsu and jinjutsu are much more difficult than ordinary ninjutsu because of the control of chakra. Generally, ninjutsu only use hand seals to mobilize chakra, but medical ninjutsu is different. It needs to precisely control to precisely control to controls to control. Kotoko raised her small hand and asked, Mia-senpai, why don't we directly mobilize our body's energy when we use medical ninjutsu? You're a ninja. Don't you even know the most basic knowledge? Yayoi replied in a bad mood. Physical energy and spiritual energy are more of a concept. Only when the 2 are integrated into chakra can it be considered a real entity. To achieve the situation you said, unless someone's physical energy is strong enough to the point of materialization. But how is this possible? Oh, Kotoko shrunk her head. Her mind was full of formulas and tools, and for a moment she didn't react. Garashi held his chin with his small hand, secretly thinking, most people use non-elemental chakra and change their nature to use ninjutsu. The reason why senjutsu is powerful is because the nature of chakra has changed. Is the source of Naruto's strength related to the nature of chakra? At night in Garashi's cabin, Shushi sat in front of the table, holding a small knife. He carefully made a shallow cut on the back of his left hand. His hands quickly formed a seal, and then his right hand with a light green light on the back of his left hand. It's a little itchy and painful. It should be the accelerated growth of the granulation tissue and the slow recovery of the nerve endings. 1 minute. Even if it's only a small wound of this degree, 1 minute is already my limit. Garashi whispered, carefully collecting the feedback of his body. This is not to say that Garashi is so kind that he would rather hurt himself than catch a few small animals to do experiments. He just did this because only his own body can get the most real feedback. If the experience gained by simply using ninjutsu is 1, and the experience gained by conducting experiments is 3, then the experience gained by Garashi from his own body is 10. In the case that the amount of chakra he can refine in a day is limited, this is the best way to improve the proficiency. Moreover, Garashi also needs to figure out his tolerance to pain and the precise recovery time when he uses medical ninjutsu. As a medical ninja, he must ensure that his physical condition is under absolute control at all times. Only in this way can I accurately control myself in the battle half a month later. What degree of injury I receive. In this way, Garashi seriously attends classes during the day, spends the afternoon in the library, squeezes Asma's remaining value after school, self-harms at night at home, and goes to the hospital for an internship on weekends. During this period, although there are some occasional episodes of youth budding, they are easily handled by Garashi, and then he puts all his energy into this incomparably fulfilling study life. Soon half a month flashed by. Ding ding ding. When the bell rang on time, there was a sudden burst of cheers in the classroom, and then almost everyone turned their eyes to the two protagonists of today. Because it is a private duel, in order not to occupy public time, Garashi deliberately arranged to have it after school today. Garashi, you must win. Class leader, it's up to you. Asma, well, it's nothing, I called you wrong. Everyone around is cheering for the two people. Although Asma doesn't care much about other people's opinions, he can't help but feel a burst of jealousy in his heart. At this time, Asma-san. Hearing this sudden voice, Asma's spirit was lifted. It seems that he still has supporters. Looking in the direction of the voice, the girls in the class seemed to form a united front and shouted at him. If you dare to win against Garashi-san, we won't let you go. You can't say that, Garashi-san will be angry, but if you dare to hurt Garashi-san, humph. Oh, don't say anymore. If you continue, Asma-san will cry. In fact, they don't have much malice to Asma. Since Asma and Garashi became friends, their view of Asma has changed a lot. How can a person who can become friends with Garashi-san be a bad person? Of course, the warning is also true. Chapter 13. Asma also understood this, but he still felt wronged. He looked at Garashi with eyes full of resentment. Only then did he realize that Garashi was still sitting calmly in his seat reading. Seeing this, Asma could not help but step forward and ask angrily, "Our battle is about to begin, and you're still reading here. At least give me a nervous reaction." Garashi closed the book helplessly. "It's because you're too strong, Asma, that I have to seize every moment to improve myself." "Ah, is that so? Ahahaha. Actually, I'm not that strong." Asma laughed complacently, then asked, "But what's the use of reading? Besides, you can't remember it in time." Garashi looked puzzled. "Why can't I remember it in time?" Asma's mouth twitched. "Can you remember the contents of the book after reading it once?" "Yes. Isn't that normal for people like us?" Garashi nodded, then tilted his head and asked, "Can't you do it, Asma?" Although he had already given Asma a lot of psychological cues, this time it was real. As a genius in the eyes of ordinary people, He had the gift of photographic memory in his previous life. It was also because of this gift that he could still remember all the details of this world in his heart, even though he had transmigrated for a few years. Asma subconsciously opened his mouth wide, his throat dry. He really could not do it. Could it be that I'm actually not a genius? Thinking of this, Asma's eyes could not help but moisten. Seeing that Asma was beginning to doubt his life, Garashi smiled and walked outside. Let's go. I've been looking forward to fighting with you for a long time, Asma. Asma nodded and followed with heavy steps. On the school field, there were already many teachers and senior students waiting here. Although in the eyes of most people, this was just a farce between children, after all, it involved Sir Naruto's son, so they were still somewhat interested. What a bunch of noisy brats. We weren't so childish back then. Hey, you're only 6 years old. Why do you sound so mature? Cough cough. There's a newcomer watching from the side. Don't damage my dignity as a senior. Not only were the students whispering, but the teachers of each grade were also whispering. TSK. When did the battle between two freshmen attract so many people? I hope this battle won't be too ugly. What's so interesting about a battle between two newbies? Spitting at each other? At best, it's just chakra's saliva. Generally speaking, being able to learn how to refine chakra in half a month is already not bad. But don't forget that Asma is the son of Lord Naruto. That's right, geniuses can break the rules. 8 gods don't play dead. You're their teacher, so you should know their progress better than anyone else. The 8 gods smiled. Asma is indeed a genius. When he entered the academy, he was already proficient in using the 3-body jutsu. Now, maybe he has already learned more than one D-class ninjutsu. Are you kidding? Doesn't that mean that he's already reached the graduation standard? Don't talk nonsense. A ninja doesn't just know how to use the 3-body jutsu. Technique and experience are also very important. However, this kind of talent is really amazing. He's worthy of being Naruto-sama's son. It seems that our Woodleaf Academy will have another genius like Orochimaru. At this moment, a hearty laughter came from behind them. Haha, don't flatter him. Compared with Orochimaru, he's still far behind. Everyone turned around and found that the person who came was none other than Sandame Naruto. Fire Naruto-sama. You're here too. Sandame waved his hand and smiled. I'm not here today as Naruto. You can treat me as an ordinary student. That being said, the teacher standing next to Sandame still felt a burst of pressure. Fortunately, Garashi appeared and walked into the field at the right time. Sandame's attention was diverted, and the pressure on them was finally reduced a lot. Garashi, I know you're strong. In this school, only you are worthy of being my opponent. Asuma's expression was serious as he roared. Come, let's show these people our strength. Hiss. Everyone shuddered violently. What was with this feeling of shame that had nowhere to go? Many teachers quietly looked at Sandame. Children often imitate their parents' behavior. Could it be that Naruto-sama is actually like this at home? Sandame's right hand holding the pipe stiffened, and he began to doubt whether it was right for him to come here today. Garashi made the seal of opposition with both hands, and said with a firm look, Asma-san, I'm going to start. Asma also made the seal of opposition. Come on. As soon as he finished speaking, Asuma leaned forward with his arms straight behind him, charging toward the opposite side in a short distance dash. Shushi, on the other hand, quickly retreated backward. His right hand pulled out 4 shurikens from the tool bag at his waist, and held them between his fingers. His eyes were focused on Asuma's feet, anticipating his next move. Then, whoosh, 4 shurikens shot out, piercing the air, and shot toward Asma's shoulders and ankles. Asma's rushing figure paused, and he forced himself to jump to the left. But before he could relax, he was startled by the sudden sound of something breaking through the air. Looking out of the corner of his eye, he saw 4 more shurikens shooting toward him. It felt as if he was the one who took the initiative to deliver them. He actually predicted my movements in advance. This throwing technique, worthy of Garashi. Asma sighed in his heart. Obviously his physical strength and chakra are above Garashi, but he was the one who was in danger first. However, this level of throwing technique is not a ninjutsu. Let me show you how to use ninjutsu. Asuma didn't dodge, and directly faced the shurikens. Bang! Ding 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 ding. A burst of smoke filled the air, and Asuma's original position was replaced by a piece of gravel. Asuma, who just fell to the ground, accelerated forward without hesitation, and some of his eyes were focused on Garashi's waist. The shurikens in the tool bag should be used up. What are you going to do next, Garashi? You can use the substitution technique so skillfully. That's amazing. Wait, that's... Ah, be careful. Hearing the screams around him, Asuma subconsciously looked back, and a flash of cold light skyrocketed in his line of sight. This is... Asuma's pupil violently shrank. Too late to make hand seals. He could only hurriedly roll to the side. Three-body technique is not without hand seals. I specifically checked. When Sakura fought Sark, she also needed hand seals to use the substitution technique. But he was still a step late. The cold light took away a few drops of blood from his cheek. Asuma didn't have time to care about the faint tingling on his cheek, but looked at the opposite side with surprise. In front of him, Garashi stood quietly, raised his right hand, and 4 shurikens were flying around him. Between the shurikens and the fingertips, there was an almost transparent chakra line connecting them together. Chapter 14. This is chakra thread? He actually used the puppeteer's technique on a ninja tool. His control of chakra has reached such a level? Ordinary puppeteers can't do this. Indeed, under the condition of ensuring the speed of the shuriken and not being discovered by Asuma, this requires extremely high control of chakra. Everyone was very surprised, regardless of whether it was Shushi's throwing technique that seemed to be able to predict the future, or Asuma's substitution technique that was as smooth as flowing water. They had all displayed amazing skills that far surpassed the newcomers, and even the seniors. If these were still within the acceptable range of everyone, then the ability shown by Garashi now is shocking. Purely from the difficulty of controlling chakra, this technique is not inferior to a C-class ninjutsu. I lost. If I didn't hear their voices, I would have lost the ability to fight. Asuma wiped the blood on his face with the back of his hand. His voice was weak. Listening to Asuma's words, many people around showed an embarrassed look. Naruto. Sama didn't say anything, obviously. He believed in Garashi's controllability. Their subconscious actions destroyed Garashi's plan. Don't worry about it. The influence of external factors is originally a part of the battle. Besides, what is a battle without variables and accidents? Garashi smiled slightly. He didn't lose his composure because of the external influence. Asuma took a deep breath and no longer hesitated. I understand. Only a battle with all my strength is the greatest respect to you. Almost at the moment his voice fell, Asuma rushed towards Garashi. At the same time, the shuriken hovering around Garashi's body fiercely shot out. The number of shuriken was not many, but under Garashi's control, it evolved into a storm-like momentum. Asuma didn't dare to dodge, and it was impossible to dodge, even if his stamina and chakra were above Garashi. Once he was caught in a situation of constant pursuit, only defeat awaited him. He could only fight hard. Asuma held the chakra with both hands and waved in front of him again and again, bouncing the shuriken away. Ding 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 hiss. Although Asuma's movements were very fast, Shushi's angle of attack was too good. If he wasn't in Asuma's blind spot, he was attacking from 2 opposite directions at the same time. Asuma was tired of parrying, but halfway, his body was cut several times by the shuriken. But he didn't retreat. Instead, he rushed more and more aggressively. He didn't use substitution jutsu. Does he want to use chakra in a more critical place? Garashi's eyes narrowed slightly, and he didn't use the guerrilla tactics of kiting, but took out a kunai from the tool bag with his right hand and made a defensive posture. He was not confused by the illusion in front of him. He could take the advantage at the moment because Asuma was inexperienced and was caught off guard by his novel fighting style. But once the opponent was prepared, the disadvantage of this fighting style was highlighted. That is, the lack of power. After all, shuriken was controlled by chakra, and it was difficult to maintain the initial kinetic energy at the beginning. Therefore, Even though Asuma had been slashed several times by the shuriken, he was still able to charge forward energetically. Garashi was very clear that with his body without adequate nutrition, if he entered the gorilla phase, he was likely to be worn down by the opponent. I must continue to put psychological pressure on him. Although he has entered the declining stage, Garashi not only did not retreat, but deliberately pretended to be victorious, standing in the same place waiting for Asuma's attack. Asuma has been implanted by Garashi these days that his enemy is almost omnipotent, from refining chakra to photographic memory, and then to all-round suppression on the battlefield. He has been constantly consolidating this perception. Therefore, when Asuma saw Garashi's posture, he subconsciously thought that he was seen through, and couldn't help but launch the prepared ninjutsu in advance. Clone jutsu. Bang! 3 Asuma surrounded Garashi at the same time. The clone jutsu's clones did not have a physical body, but Asuma had chosen to use the shuriken right after the first round of attacks. This way, shuriken could not use the shuriken to test which one was the real one. However, Garashi didn't hesitate at all. His eyes were firm, and he directly stabbed Asuma on the left with the kunai in his hand. His perception is strong, not to mention, he has been paying close attention to Asuma's every move after seeing through his thoughts. What? How can it be so fast? Asuma was shocked and hurriedly raised his hand to block. But how can Garashi's attack be so easy to block? Kunai is like a snake, wrapping Asuma's arm and poking his shoulder. I can only fight. Although he doesn't have much actual combat experience, Asuma has been taught by special jonin after all, and he knows that it is even more impossible to retreat now. He grabbed chakra without any defense and slashed forward. Asuma's left shoulder was punctured, and blood gushed out. Rinstone, who had the upper hand, only managed to inflict a shallow wound on his chest, but the disadvantage of his physique made him look very pale. Seeing this situation, the 8 gods asked with some uneasiness, "Naruto-sama, do you want to stop them?" The Sandaime gently raised his palm. "Since you chose this path, you should be prepared to bleed, and even die in battle." "And," the Sandaime said with a playful look in his eyes. "And what?" the 8 gods asked puzzledly. "Oh, let's see, this battle may be more interesting than you think." In the field, after a slight pause, the two rushed at each other fiercely again. Asuma suppressed him with his physical advantage, while Garashi manipulated shuriken to harass the opponent, while looking for the right time to grab kunai to attack quickly. In just a few rounds, the blood on the two of them increased several times. However, neither of them showed any abnormality, and they looked directly at each other, as if the injured person wasn't them. The expressions of the people around them also became dignified, not to mention the amazing strength shown by the two of them. Just their endurance of pain is enough to make people look at them. However, the balance of the battle still tilted to Asuma's side. Everyone knew in their hearts, but they didn't underestimate Garashi because of this. On the contrary, they valued him more and more. For ninjas who don't specialize in taijutsu, winning by physical strength is not something to boast about. Not to mention, Garashi is at a disadvantage in physical strength because of malnutrition. In their view, Garashi, who showed amazing combat skills and chakra control skills, is the real winner of this battle. But just when everyone thought that the battle was about to end, Garashi suddenly bit the kunai in his mouth, and then his hands quickly formed seals, and in less than a second, he completed the ninjutsu. So fast. This thought suddenly flashed in everyone's heart. Although Garashi didn't make many seals, but he can control the time in less than a second, which is still impossible for most people to do. But what's the use of using ninjutsu now? They thought so. And then they saw Garashi, who put his right hand on the wound. His face became ruddy at a speed visible to the naked eye. And even the wound on his chest was quickly healing. This is healing technique? Not to mention healing technique, even Immortal Palm technique can't have this effect. Not to mention the students, even the teachers couldn't understand. Naruto-sama, what is this? Sandaime-sama smiled slightly. Don't doubt your eyes, this is healing technique. But how can healing technique have this effect? You call yourself a teacher? Sandaime-sama shook his head and laughed. Can't you even see the true state of the students? You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.